A photo captures many things. It captures the illusion of an expression, it captures a moment, a situation, a mask of an individual. Typically, a pose is struck, a way of you, the person on the receiving end of the picture, or others cherishing the event, those taking the picture. It becomes a memento. It carries with it a certain level of nostalgia. Photos, though, are predominantly fake. For the longest time, this was the only photo we had of the person we are going to discuss today. This photo is a falsehood. This photo is fake, an illusion, a disguise to fool the masses. While the photo itself is physically real, the expression captured and the impression is 100% trickery. The person in the picture is Lucy Letby. Lucy Letby will live the rest of her life within a prison, being granted one of the rarest sentences ever passed down to a woman, yet it is one that is truly deserved. This picture, one of only 3 pictures we ever saw of her, up until the moment of a guilty verdict being passed, was all we got to see. Media coverage was quite limited in presenting a more natural and true face of Lucy Letby. This picture conveys the illusion of happiness and hides the reality of evil, an attempt on Lucy's part to try and appear as if she is a sweet innocent woman that can do no wrong, but also that of the media in an attempt to, if she were ever found innocent, to try and allow her to get her life back, a rare treat not granted to men. This photo though could not be further from the truth. The picture is a mask of an individual or groups of peoples trying to capture something. It is rarely ever real. Today I'd like to show you just how fake this picture is and what the real Lucy Letby looks like.
Well, isn't this just fantastic?
Hello everyone, welcome to the Halls of Injustice. Today we welcome an inmate I've been collecting sources on for years. I'm sure many of you have been waiting patiently for this to happen. Today we are going to be inducting Lucy Letby into the Halls of Injustice. What we're going to do, because I can't maintain the intro style for the entire video, is go through who Lucy Letby is, the crime she committed, the trial, the sentence, and fallout, because there is some fallout to this. I had considered going through every individual source I had, but then I realised some of them would only have 1 or 2 sentences different before then simply regurgitating a story while they also awaited the trial of Lucy Letby. One of my biggest criticisms about this coverage of Lucy Letby has been that for the most part, the coverage has been remarkably neutral. There is a level of sexism involved and I find that quite irritating, but I'm going to shelve my irritation to focus on what it is Lucy Letby has done after I've told you who she is. Disclaimer, when we get to the crimes, it's going to concern babies. That may well be a suitable trigger warning for many of you to simply go, no, I'm out. That's fine. I fully understand that. Lucy Letby was born on the 4th of January 1990 in Hereford, Herefordshire. She is the only child of a finance manager and an accounts clerk. Her birth was a difficult one and involved many nurses to bring her to life, which is actually the main motivating factor for her career path. After completing school and sixth form college in Hereford, she pursued further education at the University of Chester, studying nursing. She worked as a student nurse during her 3 years of training, carrying out placements at Liverpool Women's Hospital and the Countess of Chester Hospital. She became the first member of her family to go to university and graduate. In 2012, she began working as a registered nurse at the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital. In a staff profile, she said that she was responsible for caring for a wide range of babies requiring various levels of support, and that she enjoyed seeing them progress and supporting their families. She took part in a campaign to raise funds for a new neonatal unit at the hospital. Parents would note that Lucy Letby happily chatted about her life, such as telling them how she was single and happy being single. She had 2 training placements at Liverpool Women's Hospital in late 2012 and early 2015, which did later on come under investigation. In June 2016, consultants asked management to remove her from clinical duties pending an investigation into her conduct. Foreshadowing, folks. She had previously been moved from night to day shifts by the unit's ward manager, and she was transferred to the patient experience team in July 2016 and later to the risk and patient safety office working there until she was arrested in 2018. In 2015, she had qualified to work with infants who needed intensive care. In the same year, suspicious incidents began. Lucy had told others she found non-intensive care work boring and sought the action of the intensive care unit. When she was moved to day shifts, the suspicious incidents notably moved from occurring overnight to happening in the daytime when Lucy was working. So yes, you can certainly chalk up subtlety as something she does not possess, and the clear behavioural pattern of someone who is a crisis actor. Lucy Letby is currently 33 years old. She wanted to be a neonatal nurse from childhood until adulthood. All she ever wanted to be was that. But once put into a position of power, something within Lucy changed. She was less interested in helping others as she was helping herself. In doing so, she would take the lives of others to sate this hunger, to manufacture drama. But in manufacturing this drama, quite a number of lives were lost. During her time as a nurse, Lucy Letby had developed an infatuation with one of the doctors. This was believed to have been one of the inspirations for why she committed the crimes she committed, so she could get closer to that doctor. As far as Lucy's life goes, up to the moment she committed crimes, she had what was considered an idyllic upbringing. Yet when people now describe her, she is considered cold, calculated, cruel, and relentless. A police officer that described her life and the kind of person she was, DCI Nicola Evans, used one word to describe Lucy Letby after analysing it. The word was beige. Quote, "There isn't anything outstanding or outrageous that we found out about her as a person. She was an average nurse. She was what you would say is a normal 20-something-year-old, but clearly there was another side of that nobody saw and that we have unravelled during this investigation." And of course, I am jumping ahead. We have yet to even talk about the crimes. The thing with this is, there are lots, and there are some pending as well. Lucy Letby lived a mile away from the hospital she worked at, in an area predominantly surrounded by older people. They themselves rarely saw her in the 2 years that she lived there before her arrest. Her parents had helped her buy the house. The house itself was decorated in a way that could act as a suitable additional mask for the kind of person she is. But as she rarely had anyone over, that disguise never had to be used. But something in that house that undoes Lucy considerably is that she was a fastidious diary keeper, writing down work shifts in bluing, social engagements in pink, ticking off items that she had completed, including delivery of a washing machine. But she kept so much in that, including parts of her crimes. And just to go into detail, she would put things like going to the gym, salsa classes, and other additional parts of her social life within it. This is important. To understand the kind of person she is, you need to understand that when someone keeps as much information in a diary, chances are, and considering the nature of the crime she's committed that we're going to get to very, very soon, there will be references in that diary to what she's done. Because when one puts as much attention to detail as this, yet ironically not in the workplace, i.e. being a bit more subtle, it is understandable somebody would want to keep a record of what they have done in their lifetime as a form of trophy, which is quite common with those who take lives. For the crimes of Lucy Letby, we're going to be going through a veritable alphabet of unnamed children. Yeah, not a joke, the majority of the alphabet is Phil. The span of the crimes was 2015 to 2060, with her being apprehended on the 3rd of July 2018. Yes, there's a 2-year gap between the end of her crimes and the date of her arrest. You'll understand why soon. On the 8th of June 2015, Child A was born 6 weeks premature along with his twin sister, Child B, and was days old and healthy when he was handed over to Letby on the night shift. 30 minutes later, he deteriorated rapidly, dying within 90 minutes of Lucy Letby coming on duty. The method of death was IV air embolism. What this means is an air bubble was injected via an IV bag into baby A. Between the 8th and the 11th of June 2015, the attempted murder of Child B, the sister. Lucy Letby rinsed and repeated the method on Child A onto Child B. Child B survived after being resuscitated. Subsequent tests show loops of gas-filled bowel, a later finding replicated in several babies over the following year. On the 14th of June 2015, Child C was born 7 weeks premature, weighing 800 grams. which is 1 pound 12 ounces, but was in good condition. Lucy Letby is seen standing over his monitor as his alarm sounded, despite not being the designated nurse. He died as a result of air being injected into his stomach, not the bloodstream. At this point, no alarms have been raised, although that one did get the attention of some officials. On the 22nd of June 2015, Lucy Letby injected air into child D's bloodstream, causing her to collapse 3 times in the early hours of the 22nd of June 2015. The third collapse is fatal. Those attended noticed discoloration on the baby's skin. Much like with child A, the method used was IV air embolism. On the 2nd of July 2015, Dr. Stephen Breary, the head consultant on the neonatal unit, carries out a review of the 3 unusual deaths in June 2015. Alison Kelly, the Director of Nursing and Chief Executive Deputy, is told that Lucy Letby was the only nurse on shift for each of the deaths. Lucy Letby, though, remained on the neonatal unit. After a month of things quietening down, on the 4th of August 2015, Child E was born 7 weeks premature along with his twin brother, Child F, and weighed less than 1.4 kilo, which is 3 pounds. His mother walked in on Lucy Letby trying to murder the newborn after arriving on the unit with his milk. Child E died after suffering a fatal bleed believed to be the result of Lucy Letby interfering with his nasogastric tube. The method for this was IV air embolism and bleeding from trauma. Lucy wasn't done though with these twins, and much like with Child A and Child B, went after the sibling. Lucy Letby on the 5th of August laced Child F's feeding bag with insulin less than 24 hours after the death of the twin brother, Child E. A blood sample later confirms extremely high insulin levels and very low C-peptide levels, proof that he had been injected with insulin. On the 7th of September 2015, the most premature of all the babies in this case, Child G, was born 15 weeks early and weighed 450 grams, 1 pound. Lucy Letby tried to kill her 3 times over 3 weeks. The first time, on the day of her 100th day alive. Child G, now 8 years old, is severely disabled as a result of the attacks. The method used was extra milk and air via nasogastric tubing. The second attempt, 5 days after she returned from Arrow Park Hospital. She had been taken following an early attempt to kill her. Lucy Letby tried to, this time while feeding her around 10 a.m. The method, though, is deemed unknown at this point. On the 23rd of October 2015, a murder described in court as persistent, calculated and cold blood. Lucy Letby killed Child I on her 4th attempt after inserting air into the baby girl's stomach. Lucy sent a sympathy card to her parents on the day of her funeral. The method you may have noticed frequently used by Lucy was air, because pills, medication for the most part, can be tracked to the person who administered it. Air, not so easy. On the 23rd of October 2015, an alarm was raised. Dr. Breary became increasingly concerned following the death of Child I. Another staffing review found Lucy Letby was present at more unusual deaths. Another consultant alerts management to their concerns but is told not to make a fuss, quote. Lucy Letby remained on the neonatal unit. On the 8th of February 2016, a thematic review ordered by Dr. Breary finds several common links in 9 unusual deaths since June 2015. Lucy Letby's connection to the mortalities is mentioned at a meeting, which was sent to the medical director Ian Harvey. Breary requested an urgent meeting with executives, but no meeting took place until May 2016. On the 9th of April 2016, Lucy Letby injected insulin into a dextrose bag attached to Child L. Tests later find his insulin level at the very top of the scale that the equipment was capable of measuring. This was attempted murder with poison in the form of insulin. On the 9th of April 2016, yes, there's another, Child M, the twin brother of Child L, suffered an unexpected life-threatening collapse shortly after the insulin poisoning of his brother. His heart rate and breathing dropped dramatically, and he came close to death as a result of being injected with air. It was yet again IV air embolism. He survived, but suffered brain damage as a result of the attack. On the 11th of May 2016, Dr. Breary met Harvey and Kelly to discuss concerns about Lucy Letby after an assurance document set out why Lucy Letby was not believed to be the cause of the unusual deaths. It suggested other NHS services may be to blame for the spike in deaths. and that, quote, there is no evidence whatsoever against Lucy Letby other than coincidence. Essentially, Dr. Brewery's concerns were dismissed. On the 13th of June 2016, Lucy Letby tries to kill child N, days after he is born. The newborn has haemophilia, a condition causing severe bleeding. Lucy Letby used this as a cover to attack him by thrusting his nasogastric tube into his throat, causing trauma. On the 23rd of June 2016, Lucy Letby murders the first of 2 triplets a day after returning from a holiday to Ibiza. Child O had been a perfect healthy baby and was due to go home when he collapsed unexpectedly. Post-mortem x-rays show a higher than normal amount of gas in his body. Method: air via nasogastric tube and trauma. The 24th of June 2016, shortly after child O was murdered, Lucy Letby turned to his days-old triplet brother. The nurse pumps air into the boy's stomach via a nasogastric tube while feeding him milk at 6 p.m, 13 minutes after his brother had died. Experts believe this excess air shattered the little boy's diaphragm. The doctors believed that he would make a full recovery, but as they were preparing him for another hospital, Lucy Letby says, "He's not leaving here alive, is he?" She made a similar remark when child C collapsed a year earlier. On the 24th of June 2016, the tipping point comes following the unexpected death of child O and child P. Dr. Brewery phones duty executive Karen Rees on the evening of Friday the 24th of June 2016 to say that Lucy Letby has to be removed from the unit. Karen Rees insists Lucy Letby is safe to work and is happy to take responsibility if anything happened to other babies when Lucy Letby was involved. Oh, there's some karmic justice involved there, isn't there, folks? 3 weeks later, Lucy Letby was removed from duty and the suspicious collapses all stopped. It took 2 years to have enough of a case built for the police to step in and arrest Lucy Letby on suspicion of 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. This is a picture we saw finally of Lucy Letby in her home being arrested. We rarely saw pictures of her up until the moment she was found guilty of that kind of expression. Funny that. So she was initially arrested and charged on suspicion of 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. Her home was searched. Began by looking into her entire career. She was bailed on the 6th of July as the police continued inquiries. Time had to be taken to review unexpected large amounts of documentation and evidence found in her home. Her diaries were found in what appeared to be a code of coloured asterisks that marked significant events in the investigation. She was rearrested on the 10th of June 2019 in connection with 8 said murders and 9 said attempted murders, and again on the 10th of November 2020. She was bailed in 2019 as more time was needed to get evidence together to make sure it was as strong as possible before charges could be brought. There were thousands of exhibits in the investigation, 16,571 of which were not even used as evidence, and some of the items themselves thousands of pages long. In 2019, the arrest and bailing had been made, as by this time, a further 3 times. The 2019 arrest and bailing had been made, as by this time 3 further cases of attempted murder had been identified, which investigators needed to question Lucy Letby further on, and as Lucy Letby had been found to have written extensively about the case on her 2018 arrest, detectives wished to see whether she had written anything further in the year while she was under investigation. On the 13th of March 2020, she was placed on an interim suspension by the Nursing and Midwifery Council. On the 11th of November 2020, she was charged with 8 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder and was denied bail and remanded into police custody. The Crown Prosecution Service were convinced to approve all of the charges that the Cheshire Constabulary requested against Lucy Letby after it reviewed the evidence the force had collected against her. She denied, at this point, all 22 charges against her, blaming the deaths on hospital hygiene and staffing levels. By the way, she remained suspended, until mid-August 2023. By that point, she was already in prison. The trial of Lucy Letby began on the 10th of October 2022. One of the initial ground rules that had to be agreed upon first was anonymity for almost everyone involved. The level of press secrecy involved around the identities of these 17 babies, 9 colleagues, one of whom was the guy that Lucy had been trying to flirt with, was on a level rarely seen outside of national security. It should be noted there were 1 or 2, though it was very hard to have any form of anonymity, owing to the fact that some of the victims' parents were physicians and were required for their expertise. Several witnesses also requested anonymity. The judge approved all requests, ruling that getting testimony from the colleagues was more important than them being publicly identifiable. The prosecutor started by saying that Lucy Letby was a constant, malevolent presence in the hospital's neonatal unit. There were witnesses that had walked in during or just after Lucy Letby had attacked, one of which we discussed earlier. A mother of one of the victims said she walked in on Lucy, so the mother we earlier mentioned, trying to kill her baby, with Lucy saying, "Trust me, I'm a nurse." Another mother walked in to hear her baby screaming, to find her child had blood around his mouth, with Lucy Letby in the room. The mother said that despite the obvious distress the baby was in, Lucy was faffing about, not really doing anything. You know when it feels like somebody just wants to look busy, but they're not actually doing anything? Lucy had told the mother to go back to the ward. However, the baby's condition soon worsened, and the baby had passed away in their mother's arms. There was no post-mortem carried out, which might have shown what Lucy Letby had done. Afterwards, Lucy bathed the deceased baby in front of her parents. Another mother of a baby who had died in October 2015 recounted an uncomfortable experience of Lucy bathing her child. Quote, "Lucy Letby and another nurse asked me if I wanted to bathe my baby. While we were bathing her, Lucy came back in. She was smiling and kept going on about how she was present at the first bath and how our daughter had loved it. I wished that she would just stop talking." Lucy's apparent obsession with this baby and her family later continued when she then sent a sympathy card to the parents after the baby's passing on the day of the funeral. When Lucy was arrested, it was found on her phone that she had photographed that very card before she sent it and still kept pictures of it. There's a word for that. We're going to go with foreshadowing for now. Police had discovered during their investigations that Lucy Letby had sent texts to others after each of their deaths. She asked one, "How do such sick babies get through and others just die so sudden and unexpected?" In another, on the 9th of April 2016 during a day shift after twin boys child L and M collapsed, she wrote, "Work has been shit, but I've just won £135 on Grand National. Unpacking party sounds good to me with my favourite vodka." On the 22nd of June 2016, before her return to work following a holiday, she texted, "Probably be back with a bang." Notably, on her first shift back the next day, child O was murdered. During the trial, these texts were seen as important, as they sometimes appeared to be a live blogging of events. Lucy had also told a colleague that taking child A to the mortuary was the hardest thing she'd ever had to do. Lucy had also searched for the parents of several infant victims on Facebook. In one case, on the anniversary of a baby's death. In total, Lucy Letby had searched for 11 of the families affected. When police had asked why she searched up the parents of child O, she responded that she could not explain why she would be doing it. The belief of the prosecution and many involved was that a form of Munchausen's by proxy was involved. The prosecution continued by saying that Lucy Letby had injected air into the bloodstream of 2 victims and had used insulin to murder others, revealing also that during the trial, Lucy had been told more than once not to enter a room where the parents of one of the victims were grieving. Letby said, "It's always me when it happens." Lucy Letby's defense lawyer had said that Lucy was a dedicated nurse in a system which had failed, and that the prosecution's case was driven by the assumption that someone was doing a deliberate harm combined with the coincidence of certain occasions of Miss Letby's presence, and that there had been a massive failure of care in a busy hospital neonatal unit, far too great to blame on one person, and that extraordinary bleeding in a baby boy murdered by Lucy Letby could have been caused by a rigid wire or tube. The therapeutic use of insulin was denied by Letby's colleagues, mostly because it isn't your place to give or administer without the permission of a doctor. No baby on the unit was prescribed insulin, therefore there was no reason why any baby should have been given it. It was kept, the insulin, in a locked fridge next to a nurse's station. A key piece of evidence was also given by a consultant who recounted that in February 2016, he'd walked in and seen Lucy standing over a baby and watching when they seemed to have stopped breathing. Lucy was not doing anything despite the baby desaturating. When he asked her what was going on, she responded that he'd only just then started declining. Fortunately, the baby had survived the collapse. By this stage, all 7 of the pediatrician consultants who worked on the neonatal ward agreed that something was seriously wrong in the department. The deaths and near deaths that were happening on the unit could not be medically explained. All babies involved had been expected to live, and so their deaths came out of the blue. Previously, in this majority of times, the premature babies had collapsed. It had already been expected, and in the very rare cases it was not already expected. It could, unlike in all of these cases, be medically explained. A pediatrician testified that he and the other clinicians had previously raised concerns about Lucy Letby, but were told by the administration they should not really be saying such things, and not to make a fuss. Remember Brewery from earlier? And the deputy or duty executive Karen? Yeah, I wonder who these people are then. Prosecution then went on to point out what happened to babies L and M. Baby L had been poisoned with insulin. Baby M had collapsed under Lucy Letby's care and had survived after 30 minutes of resuscitation. She had injected air into the bloodstream of baby M. The prosecution noted that although she wasn't meant to be working night shifts, Lucy was caring for child L, as she specifically volunteered to do an extra shift to care for child L. The prosecution argued that she had seen an opportunity here to kill child L, where she had previously failed with child F. Lucy, in the trial, accepted that the results showed that some victims had been deliberately injected with insulin, and she did not contest that someone must have administered it to them. A key point that was raised in the first 3 days is that no matter how many children died or almost died under Lucy's care, and how the correlation really didn't line up with it being the fault of the NHS, the hospital itself, those in higher office, the administrators for these hospitals, refused to listen. There's a fallout for that, don't worry. Hopefully justice in the future as well. So no matter how many times the consultants made their desire to have Letby removed from duties known to hospital staff, it was refused. And the very next day, another baby almost died. In the 2 cases where insulin poisoning had been proved, evidence provided by medical experts indicated that all the babies had been harmed intentionally. This evidence was given by experts specializing in areas of pediatric radiology, pathology, hematology, neurology, endocrinology, all pediatric based. With 2 main medical experts who were consultant pediatricians, Lucy was the only staff member on duty for every one of the 25 suspicious incidents. As soon as she was removed, everything stopped. You can't tell me that you couldn't see it. In a lot of the incidents, while overfeeding milk and insulin happened, air injections was the most common. But it should be noted, they were all chosen because they would dissipate and not be easily detected afterwards. On the 4th day of the trial, the prosecution presented a handwritten note from Lucy Letby that said, "I am evil, I did this," and that she killed them on purpose because she couldn't take care of them. Further stating, "I killed them, I'll never marry or have children, I'll never know what it's like to have a family." The defense had argued that the note was the anguished outpouring of a young woman in fear and despair when she realizes the enormity of what's being said about her in the moment to herself, and that Lucy had written it when she was dealing with employment issues, including a grievance procedure with the NHS Trust. Several other notes from Lucy were shown in court, 2 of which said, "Why? How has this happened? What process has led to this situation? What allegations have been made and by who? Do they have written evidence to support their comments? And I haven't done anything wrong and they have no evidence, so why have I had to hide away?" Both of which were meant to be Lucy Letby expressing frustration about not being allowed back to work in the neonatal unit. When the police raided her home, they found she kept secret medical documents at home relating to the care of the children. 257 confidential handover sheets, resuscitation sheets, blood gas readings were taken from the hospital, and later concluded that she kept these as a trophy. The trial judge stated that she kept these as a morbid record of her murders. The documents, which should never have left the hospital, contained the names of babies, and the documents had been stuffed and hidden away in shopping bags under her bed, like a pro. One note of medications given to her baby boy who had managed to survive after being on the brink of death, written on a paper towel, was found under Lucy's bed. Lucy claimed at the trial she had no means of destroying confidential notes, yet it was pointed out there was a paper shredder in her home. Her diary was also found to be marked with the initials of the babies she killed on the exact days they died. It was within this diary the note that has stated "I'm evil and I did this" was tucked inside. Furthermore, more notes were discovered that contained phrases such as "I'm sorry that you couldn't have a chance at life," and "I don't want to do this anymore," and "How can life be this way?" and "Hate my life," and "Help" in capital letters. The prosecution said that these notes were evidently confessions of guilt rather than just the words of a woman in distress. Skipping ahead in the trial to May 2023, Lucy Letby gave evidence, repeatedly breaking down in tears and claiming she was made to feel as though she were incompetent, but meant no harm. When asked why she wrote, "I am evil, I did this," she said, "I felt at the time that if I'd done something wrong, I must be such an evil, awful person. I'd somehow been incompetent and had done something wrong, which had affected those babies." She also said the allegations had negatively impacted her mental health, or didn't, by saying, "I don't think you can be accused of anything worse than that. I just changed as a person. My mental health deteriorated. I felt isolated from my friends on the unit. From a self-confidence point of view, it made me question everything about myself." Because 7 murders and your mental health is the real takeaway from it. But this was hardly a surprise, because it was noted during the entire time she was giving evidence, she only broke down when she was talking about herself. When it came to the fate of the babies, there was stone silence. She also contradicted herself on multiple occasions, muddled up her story, and became more and more frustrated with the prosecution's questions, which seemed to run counter to her calm demeanour. During closing statements, Benjamin Myers Casey told the jurors that the prosecution's case had been driven by a relentless presumption of guilt and partisan and poorly reasoned expert evidence. He finished his speech by saying that it was easy to lose sight of the person at the centre of this, and not the picture conjured by the prosecution. Please keep in mind the person she was at the time the events were happening, not what she has been reduced to now. I'm saying this on her behalf, because no one else will. She was hardworking, she was deeply committed, she had a happy life, she loved her work, and she was there much of the time because she was committed, because she loved being a nurse. And so she was there at the time these events happened. For a system that wanted to portion blame when it failed, she was the obvious target, not because of the evidence, because she was there. Further adding, "We say there were terrible failings in care on that unit that have nothing to do with Lucy Letby. Between June 2015 and June 2016, the neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester took more babies than it would usually care for, and took babies with greater care needs. In that same year, there was an increase in the number of deaths and the types of collapses we're looking at in this trial. Those two facts are connected, we would say." When discussing her dedication as a nurse, Benjamin Myers said she suddenly didn't change her behaviour in 2015. What changed was the babies on the unit and the inability of this unit to cope. Something pulled up as a bone of contention in the prosecution's closing statements concerned a doctor who described a number of points wrong with certain children that are no longer with us. Those bones of contention, though, were never in any doctor's notes. Interestingly also, were quoted by Lucy Letby in her police interview in 2018, also not in her notes either. So when someone does speculate a form of collusion involved, yes, you have a point. In his closing speech to jurors at Manchester Crown Court, Nick Johnson Casey said, "We want to point out the evolution of Lucy Letby's murderous assaults on these children, and we want to point out how calculated and devious she has been. We suggest Lucy Letby has gaslighted the staff at the Countess of Chester Hospital, doctors and nurses alike, professional people with many, many years of combined experience. She persuaded them that they knew in their heart of hearts to be utterly abnormal was just a run of bad luck. Lucy Letby got away with her campaign of violence for so long because people didn't contemplate the remotest possibility of a nurse trying to kill tiny babies." Nick Johnson said the similarities of many of the cases involved showed a single person was sabotaging the children, saying Lucy Letby had used ways of killing babies and trying to kill them that didn't leave much of a trace. Certainly nothing was spotted at the time as being significant, and her behaviour persuaded many colleagues that the collapses and deaths were normal. Many of them simply couldn't see the wood for the trees. Several post-mortem examinations in isolation didn't raise the alarm, because no one was contemplating the possibility of foul play. We suggest Lucy Letby is an opportunist. Some of the children she targeted were sick, but they would have recovered. She used their vulnerabilities to camouflage her acts. Case in point, child E and F, showing a form of calculated behaviour. Child E was murdered in August 2015 with an injection of air. Child F attempted murder by poisoning an intravenous feed with insulin. Nick Johnson said that 2 bags of nutrients were contaminated, one of which Lucy hung up during a night shift and a replacement stock bag used the next day when she was not at work. Both bags contained the same amount of insulin, with Nick Johnson saying it was only going to one child. It was going to be connected to that child when the poisoner was not there. What does that tell you about the mindset of that person? This is why it was a targeted attack. What better way for a person to cover their tracks than to use a replacement bag to be used by an unsuspecting colleague, a member of her nursing family? It shows a degree of cold-blooded, cynical planning. It diverts suspicion onto someone else. It deflects suspicion from Lucy Letby. She undoubtedly poisoned child F, who just happened to be the twin of the baby she murdered the previous day. Cold, calculated, cruel, and relentless. One of Lucy's arguments that Nick Johnson had to debunk was that 4 doctors, consultants, Stephen Breary, Ravi Jayaram, Dr. John Gibbs, and another doctor unnamed, sought to blame her for those failings at the hospital. Nick Johnson said, "What was their motive, the Gang of 4, for scapegoating Lucy Letby? It has been suggested that these people have invented evidence to persuade you that ultimately she's guilty. When you are considering whether that suggestion has any credibility, you might ask yourself the question, why would the doctors do that? One advantage you have had is seeing many of these alleged conspirators over and over again. Do you really think Dr. Breary, Dr. Gibbs, Dr. Jayaram, and Dr. John Doe would say things they knew were not true to get Lucy Letby convicted? We suggest that not only is Lucy Letby prepared to kill babies, she was also prepared to publicly trash the reputations of responsible professional people in an effort to get away with it." Nick Johnson's speech carried on for a number of days. I'm not going to read the rest, you don't need the rest. So instead we're going to go to the verdict. On the 10th of July 2023, after a 9-month trial, the jury was sent to deliberate. Verdicts started to be returned starting on the 8th of August, but were not fully returned till the 18th of August. So yes, it took just over a month for all verdicts to be returned. Lucy Letby was found guilty of 7 counts of murder, all 7 charges she faced. She was also found guilty of 7 counts of attempted murder of 6 infants. She was found not guilty on 2 counts of attempted murder. The jury were unable to reach verdicts on 6 further attempted murder charges. Nick Johnson asked the court for 28 days to consider whether a retrial would be sought for these 6 counts. Spoiler, yes, a retrial is happening. Under UK law, if you are found guilty of murder, the sentence is minimum life. When I'd heard she'd been found guilty, my first response was to say, if she doesn't get a whole life order, this is definitive proof of sexism in the criminal justice system. It is not something given out on a regular basis, but a whole life order seemed apt since we do not have the death penalty. And I was right.
Calculated and cynical campaign of child murder involving the smallest and most vulnerable of children, knowing that your actions were causing significant physical suffering and would cause untold mental suffering. You created situations so that collapses or causes of collapses would not be obvious or associated with you.
Lucy Letby was sentenced on the 21st of August 2023 to life with a whole life order.
And just punishment, according to law, requires a whole life order.
She is only the 4th woman in UK history to receive such a sentence.
You removed and retained confidential records of events relating to your crimes and checked up on bereaved parents. There was a deep malevolence bordering on sadism in your actions.
She was not there for the sentence. She refused. She refused to be in the court, to not attend the sentencing hearing or hear the victim impact statements.
During the course of this trial, you have coldly denied any responsibility for your wrongdoing and sought to attribute some fault to others. You have no remorse. There are no mitigating factors. In their totality, the offences of murder and attempted murder were of exceptionally high seriousness.
When the UK government were questioned about this, the current Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had said he would look at changes to compel anyone to be present for sentencing and to hear victim impact statements.
Now, I think it's cowardly that people who commit such horrendous crimes do not face their victims and hear firsthand the impact that their crimes have had on them and their families and loved ones. Now, we are looking and have been at changing the law to make sure that that happens, and that's something that we'll bring forward in due course.
Under the threat of more prison time if you don't, force being used if necessary. Since she has a whole life order, I'm not entirely convinced that is remotely applicable. I'm not going to read the victim impact statements. They are quite harrowing, and I'll link them instead in the pinned comment. Lucy Letby is appealing at time of recording on the 20th of September 2023, everything. A retrial for the 6 remaining charges is also happening on the 25th of September 2023. She has been transferred to HMP Low Newton, which is a closed prison for women in County Durham. There are a couple of things we need to discuss before we finish. Firstly, the hospital, the Countess of Chester NHS Foundation Trust, spent £325,000 on PR advice, which is 3 times what the families of those babies that are gone can claim. You can't put a price on life, but apparently in this you can. The head of the NHS Trust that Lucy Letby worked for lost a vote of no confidence and stepped down after she was first arrested. He was paid for 6 months, has a pension of over £1 million, and actually went on to work in other places. Others, though, are being looked at as being considered for accomplices. Forms of manslaughter are being considered. Of course, as that unravels, and the level of stupidity, negligence involved is unraveled and shown, we will cover that. But there's something else you need to see. I said at the start, a photo is a mask. A photo is an illusion. The only photo you've seen throughout all of this is a smile. Well, I think it only right we finish with what she really looks like. This picture. This is Lucy Letby. The real Lucy Letby. The one that isn't pretending to be something else. The one that now lives the rest of her life in a prison. There are appeals, and of course some might get overturned, but the likelihood of a whole life order being overturned is beyond unlikely. Photo is an illusion, a fakery, a pose, fraud. The crappiest mask you could ever wear is the one you put in a frame or on social media.